Hi everyone, my name's Valerie and I'm the Outreach Coordinator for Future Energy Systems, or FES. FES is a research program at the University of Alberta focused on studying the energy transition. When I say energy transition, what do you think of? My guess would be technology like those for improving oil and gas or developing new and improved renewable energy technologies. But what about us, the people? People play a huge role in the energy transition. In this series of clips, you'll meet 4 researchers in future energy systems who are studying energy and society. Let's first meet Nilusha Walgader, a postdoctoral researcher, and Shaival Gujjar, a research assistant. Their work is looking at how much greenhouse gas emissions different neighborhoods produce and the potential causes. If we want to reduce it, the first thing we need to know is where it's coming from.
Hi everyone, my name is Nilusha Walgader. I'm working as a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Alberta. My research interest focuses on greenhouse gas emissions reduction.
Hello everyone, I am Shaival Gujjar. I recently graduated from the University of Alberta. I am involved in a project which tries to understand the impacts of greenhouse gas emissions on a neighborhood level and how can it be controlled keeping future development in mind.
Greenhouse gases are gases in the Earth's atmosphere that trap heat. They are mainly carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, chlorofluorocarbons, ozone, and water vapor. Human activities have increased release of these gases into the atmosphere, warming the Earth, and resulting in many negative impacts. Like other Canadian cities, Edmonton also contributes to greenhouse gas releases or emissions, but the situation in Edmonton is further exacerbated by coal-fired power generation and colder weather. In the city of Edmonton, greenhouse gases are mainly coming from using electricity and burning natural gas to heat residential and commercial buildings, burning gasoline and diesel fuel from vehicles, using electricity for street lights, and waste management. In contrast, trees and plants help to reduce greenhouse gases in the atmosphere by absorbing carbon dioxide, that is one of the main greenhouse gas, during a process called photosynthesis. Greenhouse gas emissions are not uniform across the city. Building type, vegetation, number of people, distance to downtown, and availability of public transportation all play a role in emissions, and these are different in different parts of the city. This map shows the Edmonton's neighborhoods. In our study, we are exploring which areas produce more greenhouse gases and which produce less. Then we can use this information to design new neighborhoods with reduced greenhouse gas release into the atmosphere. Have you ever thought about how much greenhouse gases release from your neighborhood? Or what can you do to lower it? Shaival is going to talk about how we are calculating greenhouse gas emissions from different neighborhoods.
Thank you, Nilusha. Let me begin by asking you guys a question. What is a neighborhood? A neighborhood is an area within the city boundary. To put it in simple words, multiple neighborhoods make a city. In our study, we are trying to identify neighborhoods which produce more greenhouse gas emissions and neighborhoods which produce less. That will help us understand what factors or characteristics are important. Is it because of the physical pattern or the layout that they have? Is it because of the population density? How many people are in a certain area? Is it because of the distance to downtown or the nearest train or subway station? Or simply, is it because of the aging of buildings? In order to select neighborhoods, we first looked at Edmonton's neighborhood classification map. Edmonton's neighborhoods are categorized into 4 classifications, and these classifications are core, mature, established, and developing. We selected 3 neighborhoods from each classification based on the number of people in that area, year of establishment, type of building, distance to downtown, and distance to the nearest public transit station. In total, we selected 12 neighborhoods for our study. These neighborhoods are spread across Edmonton. In each neighborhood, we will look at many characteristics. We will calculate greenhouse gas emissions based on the total area of buildings which is heated in that neighborhood, especially in winters. Similarly, based on vehicular traffic data, number of streetlights, solid waste generated, we will calculate greenhouse gas emissions produced. Finally, we will determine the amount of greenhouse gases captured by trees and vegetation in each neighborhood. All of these characteristics will help us compare different neighborhoods and explore which neighborhoods produce more emissions and what are the reasons behind it. As Nilusha mentioned, this information can be used to design and build new neighborhoods that combine the characteristics that lower the emissions into the atmosphere. This can help cities meet their greenhouse gas emissions reduction objectives and play a role in the fight against climate change. Thank you.
Thank you for watching our video.
Now we have Sonak Patel, a master's student whose work is examining the opportunity for local governments to develop community energy projects. Understanding the motivations and barriers to renewable development and the complex decision-making can help us empower our communities.
Hello, my name is Sonak Patel, and I'm presenting my thesis research project, Empowering Our Communities, how municipal renewable energy projects could play a role in decarbonizing our energy sector. This research is being done on Treaty 6, the traditional and present territory of Indigenous and Métis people. Have you ever thought about where the energy you use comes from, and what kinds of impacts creating this energy has on the people and places where it's generated? If you haven't, you're not alone. Alberta has an energy system that disconnects, physically and psychologically, places of energy generation and consumption, creating issues of injustice, where some communities are impacted by energy infrastructure that powers distant populations, while profits go to a company that can be headquartered across an ocean. This energy system has also created another big issue. Electricity generation accounts for the second largest source of carbon emissions in the province, contributing to the climate crisis. Introducing more renewable energy could help reduce our emissions, but in Alberta, despite some development, building renewable energy has been slow. One big barrier can be opposition by local people, who can often be concerned about visual and economic impacts and harm to local wildlife and people. But what if we could develop renewable energy projects that reduce these injustices? This is the promise of community energy, a development type where the local population has an influential voice in and receives the benefits of energy projects located near them. One type of community that can develop these projects are municipalities, or local governments. They can engage their population, and project revenue would fund local services or reduce the tax burden. Municipalities have the advantage of existing tools and practices for decision-making and access to funding that can be used for renewable development. However, despite this potential, municipal energy projects are few and far between. This begs the question at the heart of my research. What is driving Albertan municipalities to develop local renewable energy projects, and how can these projects best be supported? To answer this question, we developed a mixed methods approach. First, we administered a survey to municipal decision makers, including council members and municipal administrations. The results show that nearly half of respondents are interested in developing these kinds of projects. We analyzed these results to see why some decision makers are interested in renewable development and some are not. The strongest themes that emerge from this analysis are that the perception of economic value is the most important motivation for municipalities, a perception that mostly stems from the belief that energy projects could reduce costs and foster an innovative image that would attract new people and businesses. The perception of carbon reduction was not quite as important as economic value, but still an important consideration for those interested in renewable development. Respondents also identified barriers that discourage them. Renewable investment is a substantial upfront cost, and most municipalities don't have that kind of money lying around. And while other orders of government do provide funding and support for municipal energy projects, many respondents feel like these programs are too difficult to access. Municipalities are hesitant to jump into renewable development with many other priorities on their plate, especially since renewable energy is not typically considered municipal jurisdiction. Respondents also really value reliability. but many respondents feel that renewable technology is still too risky. While the survey gives us a general understanding of the motivations and barriers to renewable development, we wanted to take a more detailed and in-depth look at the complex choices and discussions behind renewable energy projects. To do this, we're doing a case study right here in Edmonton. For the past few months, I've been interviewing members of the city's environmental strategies team and city councilors, as well as municipal associations, industry experts, and academics. I'm asking them whether they think the city of Edmonton should be developing renewable energy, why or why not, and how they think justice is and could be reflected in these projects. Community energy has a demonstrated potential to address the political and social barriers to renewable development, and could play a transformational role in decarbonizing our energy sector. And municipalities have the opportunity to be on the vanguard of these developments. To support these projects, we need to understand why or why not municipal decision makers are interested in pursuing renewable development. And by supporting these projects, we can develop renewable energy that doesn't just power our communities, but empowers them. Thank you for your time and attention. For more information about our project, please see our research page on the Future Energy Systems website.
Meet Nilakshi Joshi, a postdoctoral fellow whose research deals with municipal and community-level climate action. Here she'll introduce you to efforts by local government and community groups, called community leagues, to support bottom-up actions to mitigate climate change.
Global warming, climate change, greenhouse gas reduction, and energy transition are large and complex problems facing the world today. Given their magnitude and global impact, we often search for large-scale, top-down solutions to address these problems, overlooking that some answers may lie closer to home. Good evening. My name is Nilakshi Joshi, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Alberta. My research deals with municipal and community-level climate action. The scale of cities and neighborhoods that we live in is important to understand, as this is where a large demand for energy is concentrated and where a majority of the greenhouse gas emissions emanate. Edmonton, the city where my research is centered, has one of the highest per capita greenhouse gas footprints in Canada, an unflattering 19 tons per person against a global average of 4.4 tons. However, the city has launched an ambitious energy transition plan to bring down per capita emissions to 3.2 tons per person by 2035 and aims for carbon neutrality by 2050. It plans to do so most by focusing on everyday issues like promoting denser neighborhoods with carbon neutral houses and encouraging electronic vehicles. My research analyzes how this transition plan addresses local contextual factors like the existing availability of and the reliability on fossil fuels, legislative and financial limitations, and a high culture of consumption. But do Edmontonians need to wait for the government to make changes in their carbon footprint? Based on my research into volunteer-led neighborhood organizations called community leagues, the answer is no. Certain neighborhoods in Edmonton and their citizens have initiated bottom-up action long ago through community leagues. They are adopting renewable energy for community buildings and investing in energy-efficient retrofits. Furthermore, volunteers regularly organize workshops and information sessions diffusing the understanding and adoption of low-carbon technologies deep into their neighborhoods. We are working in collaboration with these pioneer neighborhoods to develop long-term climate action plans to sustain and amplify this initial momentum. While neighborhoods and city-level efforts may seem small compared to large global problems, it is a combination of such small efforts that contribute back towards achieving national and ultimately international level greenhouse gas reduction targets. Thank you.
Our final researcher is Andrea Miller, a master's student who is looking at how project ownership supports the involvement of Indigenous communities in Alberta's growing energy sector, as well as control in shaping the broader energy transition.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrea Miller and I am a graduate student in the Department of Resource Economics and Environmental Sociology. More than 300 Indigenous-led clean energy initiatives exist across Canada. Indigenous communities are developing renewable energy projects, implementing community energy plans, and completing energy efficiency upgrades. At the same time, there is growing recognition of Indigenous rights and the acknowledgement that Indigenous communities have not experienced the same benefits and opportunities of Canada's past and ongoing energy development. Projects such as the Coastal GasLink pipeline, the Site C Dam, and the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion have been consistently opposed, and many large-scale hydroelectric projects have already caused irreversible damage to landscapes and communities. What these projects have in common is a lack of consideration for who will benefit and who is harmed. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's 92nd call to action calls on the corporate sector to build respectful relationships and to ensure the free, prior, and informed consent of Indigenous peoples before moving forward with development projects. Energy transition is urgently needed to meet our climate targets, but the current pathway of this transition is one where private companies and provincial utilities own and operate energy infrastructure, and where communities are left out of critical energy decision-making. An energy transition that does not center justice and equity is at risk of perpetuating these same harms. In Canada, the energy transition must be centered on Indigenous rights. There is an opportunity for Indigenous communities to participate in the new energy economy and to build their own narratives of energy transition. Indigenous communities have been exercising their right to develop through Indigenous-led and owned renewable energy projects. These projects fulfill the need for community-centric and culturally relevant energy planning and decision-making. You may already be familiar with some of these projects, as Indigenous nations are increasingly pursuing various clean energy initiatives across the country. And just as each of these projects and communities are unique, so are the motivations and challenges. So my research asks, what role do Indigenous-owned renewable energy projects play in Alberta's energy transition? And how does project ownership support further Indigenous involvement and control in the growing renewable energy sector? This project is a community-based research partnership. We have conducted interviews with members of Enoch Cree Nation to explore the possibilities of community-owned solar and community visions for energy transition. Interviews were also done with clean energy leaders from other Indigenous nations and governance bodies, advocacy organizations, and the energy industry. What we find is that project ownership gives communities control over their energy future. Opportunities for energy cost savings, a stable revenue source, and investment into community programs and services means that communities can work towards self-reliance from governments and utilities. And partnering with both mainstream utilities and renewable energy players in these new ways create spaces for reconciliation to happen and to begin to rebuild relationships and trust that has been lost. Indigenous communities have unique strengths that will contribute to the coming climate-friendly economy. For Indigenous communities, these projects are a step towards their own transition at their own pace, as well as meaningful involvement in shaping the policy and decision-making of the broader energy transition. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us to understand more about energy and society. Make sure to subscribe to Future Energy Systems YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our exciting content, and check out the links below. There's so much to learn as we explore our energy future.